Story 1. It was 2016, but I remember every single detail of that night as if it happened just yesterday. I've always loved getting away from it all, and the woods just south of my town became my sanctuary. I'd hike out there 4 or 5 times a year, always alone, always craving that quiet space where no one could reach me. This particular weekend, that urge hit hard. So I threw some essentials into my backpack, drove to the edge of the forest, and parked on a quiet stretch of road where the trees began. I hiked for 2 hours through flat, densely packed woods, not mountainous, not dramatic, just endless rows of trees stretching in every direction. Perfect for a peaceful 1 or 2 day solo trip. Nothing more, nothing less. When I reached my spot, the sun was still high. I took my time setting up camp, arranging my gear just right, gathering dry sticks, coaxing a small fire to life. I sat back with a handful of trail mix, listening to birds chirping and the gentle crackle of flames. For a while, everything felt perfect. But forests have a strange rhythm. As the sun dipped lower, something shifted. The birds fell silent. The rustling leaves stilled. And within minutes of sunset, the woods transformed, from alive with sound to utterly unnervingly quiet. I sat there in that silence for maybe 25 minutes, just breathing, just being. Then I heard it. Music. Faint at first, coming from deep in the woods. An old classical piece, something elegant, almost haunting. It sounded like it was playing from a vintage record player, warm, slightly distorted, drifting through the trees. I stood up slowly, scanning the darkness in the direction of the sound. Another camper? A group having a late-night gathering. But why so far from any marked trail? And why so loud? I stayed put, listened. For 30 minutes, that same song played on a loop, never changing, never skipping, just repeating, filling the void of the silent forest with something that felt wrong. I'm not the type to get spooked easily, but this wasn't normal campfire music. This felt deliberate, calculated, like someone, or something, was testing the silence. After those 30 minutes, I made a decision. I grabbed my flashlight, took a deep breath, and started walking toward the sound. The deeper I went, the louder it grew, and the more my skin prickled with goosebumps. My heartbeat quickened. That's when it hit me. I'd only brought my flashlight. No knife, no pepper spray, nothing to protect myself if this turned out to be more than just a lost hiker with bad taste in music. I kept walking. The music was close now, 30, maybe 40 feet away. But there was no glow of a fire, no flickering lantern light, no voices, just music. And then I saw it. Propped against the base of a thick pine tree, a massive speaker, old school, early 2000s era. A bulky rectangular box with a faded LCD display and worn plastic buttons. No cords, no generator, just sitting there, alone. I shone my flashlight around. Nothing else. No tent, no footprints, no sign anyone had been here at all. I approached slowly, knelt down, found the power button, and pressed it. Silence. Not just quiet, absolute silence. the kind that feels heavier than sound ever could. My ears rang with the sudden emptiness, and in that void, a cold thought slithered in. This wasn't left behind by accident. It felt like a trap. I didn't stay to investigate further. I turned and hurried back toward my campsite, my footsteps quickening with every yard. Relief washed over me when I saw the warm glow of my fire through the trees. Safety, I thought. I'm safe now. But that feeling didn't last. As minutes passed, a strange tension settled over me. Something was off. I couldn't place it at first. Then it clicked. I reached for my knife. It wasn't there. My pepper spray, gone. My matches, my cooking utensils. Everything I'd left beside my sleeping bag vanished. My body locked up. Ice flooded my veins. Someone had been here while I was gone. I didn't hesitate. I started shoving what remained into my backpack, hands trembling, breath shallow. And that's when I heard it again, the music. Faint at first, then growing louder. But this time, it wasn't coming from deep in the woods. It was closer, much closer. I bolted, didn't look back, just ran down the trail as fast as my legs would carry me. The music faded behind me. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. After about 15 minutes of running and fast walking, I finally slowed, breathing hard, sweat cooling on my skin. The forest around me was quiet again, truly quiet. I allowed myself to hope I'd escaped whatever or whoever was out there. Then I saw it. Ahead on the dirt path, my stuff, my knife, my pepper spray, my utensils, all laid out in a perfect, deliberate line, right in the center of the trail, like an offering or a lure. What's the catch? My mind screamed. Why return them now? Before I could even take a step forward, before I could decide whether to grab them or keep running, I heard it. A flurry of footsteps, rushing, behind me. I spun around. Darkness. Nothing but black trees and shadows. I didn't wait to see what emerged from that darkness. I sprinted, left everything behind, ran for what felt like 10 solid minutes, lungs burning, legs aching, then kept jogging until my body couldn't take any more. When I finally stumbled onto the roadside, my car still waiting where I'd left it, I collapsed against the driver's door and sobbed with relief. I never went back to that forest, never planned to. To this day, I can't explain what happened that night, but I carry this chilling certainty deep in my bones. I barely escaped something, or someone, who wasn't just hunting. They were playing with their food. And I was lucky, so damn lucky, to be the one who got away. Story 2. Alaska has a way of making you feel both tiny and infinite at the same time. Vast, silent, untamed. And that's exactly why I went there. To disappear into the White Mountains just an hour north of Fairbanks. Solo camping, no distractions. Just me, my tent, and 2 full days of wilderness. I'd been at my campsite for 48 hours when it happened. Not a single soul crossed my path. No hikers, no wildlife. Just the whisper of wind through spruce trees and the soft crackle of my campfire. I'd settled into a rhythm, waking with the light, cooking simple meals, watching the sun hover just above the horizon even at midnight. This was Alaska in summer, where night never truly falls, only softens into a deep blue twilight. It was past noon on my third day when I heard footsteps. I turned and froze. A man stood there. Backpack, hiking boots, typical outdoor gear. But here's what unnerved me. I hadn't heard him approach. Not a twig snapping, not rustling leaves. He just appeared, like he'd stepped out of the trees themselves. He seemed harmless enough, friendly even. He asked if I knew where the cabin was, the public shelter marked on some trail maps. I'd noticed a faint path veering off into the woods during my stay. Never followed it, but I'd assumed it led to one of those first-come, first-served shelters rangers maintain. I pointed the way. He thanked me and disappeared down the trail. I didn't think much of it. Just another hiker sharing the same slice of wilderness. I tended my fire, ate a quiet meal, and watched the sun dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor. But around 9 or 10 that evening, still bathed in that eerie Alaskan twilight, I saw movement between the trees. It was him again. My stomach tightened. Why was he back? He explained he couldn't find the shelter, said he'd searched for hours but never spotted the trail I'd described. Now he was asking me to show him. Something felt off. Why return after all that time? If he couldn't find the shelter, why not set up his own tent? Why come back to my campsite, alone, in fading light, and insist I guide him deeper into the woods? He played on my sympathy, said he didn't have a tent, that he was counting on that shelter for the night. Guilt tugged at me. I didn't want to be unkind. So against my better judgment, I agreed. I slung my backpack over my shoulders and led the way. The walk was strange. 10 minutes through dense forest. He barely spoke. No casual chatter. No appreciation for the scenery. Just silent footsteps behind me, and a growing sense that the air had changed. Thickened. We reached the trail exactly where I'd seen it, and there, through a break in the trees, I could make out the shelter itself. Weathered wood, sagging roof. Definitely not inviting, but unmistakably there. He didn't thank me. Instead, he said flatly, "This isn't the right cabin." I stared at him. "What do you mean? It's right there." We walked closer. The structure came into full view. Broken windows, mold creeping up the walls, a door hanging half off its hinges. Clearly abandoned. Clearly the only shelter for miles. And that's when I turned around. He'd stopped 10 feet behind me. In his hand, a knife. Not raised aggressively, not shaking with rage, just held, steady, deliberate. His face had gone blank, eyes empty, voice monotone as he said 2 words. "Go inside." My blood turned to ice. I stood frozen for a heartbeat, anger flashing hot beneath the fear. He used my kindness as bait. But survival instinct kicked in fast. The cabin meant entrapment, darkness, no escape route. There was still distance between us. I dropped my backpack and ran. I didn't hear him chase me, didn't dare look back until I'd put 50 yards of forest between us. When I finally glanced over my shoulder, he was still standing there, knife in hand, staring, not moving, just watching me flee. I found a thicket of spruce trees and hid. Stayed there for 30 minutes, listening, breathing shallow, praying he'd leave. When silence held, I crept back toward the shelter. He was gone. But so was my backpack, my phone, wallet, keys, everything I owned, gone. I'd dropped it to run faster. A smart move in the moment, a devastating mistake now. Heart hammering, I moved quietly toward my original campsite. Every shadow felt alive, every rustle a threat. Then I saw it, firelight, my campfire, still burning brightly in the center of my sight. But I'd let it die hours ago. It should have been cold ash by now. I crept closer. My tent still stood, untouched. And there, in the exact center of the clearing, sat my backpack, zipped, neat, like nothing had happened. Why bring it back? My mind raced. He knew I'd return to the shelter first, then to camp. This wasn't kindness. This was a setup. I took one step forward, then froze. From behind the fire, a figure emerged. Him. He walked casually into the glow of the flames, tossed a few sticks onto the fire, sat down cross-legged, and began humming, a soft, tuneless melody, as if he'd been waiting all evening for me to arrive. I didn't move, didn't breathe. He wasn't chasing me anymore. He was waiting. And in that moment, I understood. Going for my bag meant stepping into his trap. Staying meant becoming his guest for the night, with no witnesses, no escape, and a knife I'd already seen. I turned slowly, backed away, then turned and ran, this time toward the main trail. I hiked through the endless twilight for hours until I reached the road, flagged down a passing vehicle, called the police. At dawn, rangers searched the area with me. They found nothing. No shelter disturbance, no footprints, no sign my campsite had ever existed. Even the stone ring around my fire had been dismantled, stones scattered deep into the woods, like someone had worked hard to erase all evidence I'd ever been there. Later, a ranger told me something that chilled me deeper than any Alaskan night. That cabin had been officially discontinued years ago. No maintenance, no records, no reason for anyone to seek it out. So why did he ask? Why did he lead me there? Why did he wait by my fire like he owned the woods? I'll never know. But I think about it often, lying awake in the safety of my own bed. How one wrong decision, stepping into that cabin, reaching for my bag, might have been the last choice I ever made. Because kindness is a virtue, but in the wilderness, it can also be a vulnerability. And some people don't just get lost in the woods. They hunt there.
Story 3. This happened just 2 weeks ago. My first backpacking trip of the summer. I thought it would be routine. Just a simple 4-day loop through northeastern Wyoming. 2 days out, 2 days back. The kind of trail I'd done a dozen times before. I parked at an empty trailhead just after sunrise, pulled on my pack, started walking. The first few hours were perfect. Quiet, peaceful, the kind of solitude that clears your mind. I was making good time, just 3 miles left to the first designated campsite. I wasn't planning to stay there. I'd pushed 2 more miles to a quieter spot deeper in the woods. That's where I'd set up for the night. Feeling hungry, I found a shaded spot beside the trail, a sturdy pine with roots forming a natural bench. I sat down, pulled out a protein bar, and took a slow breath. Just a quick break. 10 minutes max. That's when I looked up and froze. Standing in the trees, maybe 30 feet off the trail, was a man. Not hiking, not resting, just standing, staring directly at me. I have no idea how long he'd been there. Long enough to watch me sit down. Long enough to study my movements. His posture was unnaturally still, like a statue placed deliberately between the pines. Our eyes locked, and then he lifted his hand. Not a casual wave, not a friendly nod. This was mechanical, robotic. His arm rose stiffly, fingers extended. A slow, deliberate motion that felt more like a signal than a greeting. Then he lowered it, still staring. My skin prickled. I stood up immediately. Didn't finish my snack. Didn't make eye contact again. Just shouldered my pack and started walking, faster than before. I told myself he was harmless. Probably just another hiker taking a break off trail. But my gut said otherwise. Those next 3 miles felt longer than they should have. Every rustle in the undergrowth made my shoulders tense. Every shadow between trees felt like a presence. When I finally reached the campsite, relief washed over me, until I remembered I wasn't staying here. I was just passing through. But I needed a real meal, a proper break. So I set my pack down anyway, pulled out my mini propane stove, boiled water for freeze-dried dinner. As steam rose from the pot, I tried to relax, tried to convince myself I'd overreacted back there. Then I heard footsteps, crunching steadily down the trail. I looked up. It was him. Short black hair, medium-length beard, grey flannel shirt, blue jeans, mid-30s, maybe early 40s. Exactly as I'd seen him in the woods. He'd covered those 3 miles in less than 2 hours. He must have started walking the moment I did. He smiled as he approached, a wide, practiced grin that didn't reach his eyes. He said hello, asked about the trail conditions, made small talk like we were 2 buddies who'd bumped into each other at a coffee shop. I gave short answers, polite but closed, hoping he'd keep walking. He didn't. He came right up to my campsite and sat down beside me. Too close, invading my space without invitation. His friendliness felt aggressive, like he was performing kindness rather than feeling it. I tried to eat quickly, but he kept interrupting, asking about my food, my gear, my plans. At one point, he actually mocked my freeze-dried meal, called it a homeless dinner, said I needed better nutrition. Then he reached into his backpack and pulled out a protein bar, already opened. The wrapper was torn at one end, but no bites taken, no teeth marks, just waiting. Here, he said, pushing it toward me. You look hungry. I declined, firmly. He didn't take no for an answer, kept insisting, pushing the bar closer. His smile never wavered, but his eyes stayed flat, empty, like he was wearing a mask. Finally, he gave up, tucked the bar back into his pack, and said casually, "That's fine. I'm staying here tonight anyway. I'll give it to you later when you're hungry." Here, this campsite, relief flooded me. If he was staying here, I just had to leave, keep walking, put distance between us. I finished my meal in silence, stood up, said my friend was waiting at the next campsite. I had to go. His smile stayed fixed, but something shifted behind it. The mask slipped just enough for me to see the emptiness beneath. A hollow stare, a predator's patience. I walked away without looking back, checked over my shoulder twice. He hadn't followed. Not yet. 2 more hours of hiking. The sun dipped low. Shadows stretched long across the trail. When I reached my intended campsite, exhaustion weighed heavy on my shoulders. But something deeper than tiredness whispered, "Don't unpack. Don't settle. Not yet." I listened. I left my pack mostly zipped, tent still folded inside. Just sat on a log near the clearing, watching the light fade, waiting. 10 minutes later, footsteps, again, crunching down the trail with familiar rhythm. My blood ran cold. He appeared at the edge of the clearing. Same grey flannel, Same beard, same unnerving grin stretched across his face. I stood up fast. Anger flared hot in my chest. I did everything right. I left. I walked away. Why are you here? What are you doing here? I demanded, voice sharp. You said you were staying at the other campsite. He laughed, a light, mocking sound. Yeah, he said, still grinning. I'm following you. He delivered it like a joke, like sarcasm. But his eyes held no humor, just calculation. He asked if I was hungry. Again. Offered the protein bar again. Still opened, still untouched. I didn't answer. I grabbed my pack, turned my back on him, started walking, fast, purposeful, back the way I'd come. I didn't look back. I passed the previous campsite, kept walking, another mile, another, until my legs burned and my breath came in ragged gasps. Then I veered off trail, maybe 200 feet into the woods, found a small depression between roots, set up my tent in near darkness, left everything packed inside my backpack, ready to run if I had to. I lay down, heart pounding, ears straining against the silence. Somehow, exhaustion won. I fell asleep. I don't know how long I slept, but then my eyes snapped open, footsteps crunching slowly, deliberately, moving along the trail just beyond my hiding spot. He was searching, moving methodically, stopping, listening, moving again, getting closer, then passing by, the sound fading as he continued down the path. He hadn't seen me. I didn't sleep again that night. Just lay there, listening, waiting for dawn. When the first grey light touched the tent fabric, I packed in 60 seconds flat. Didn't eat, didn't drink. Just shouldered my pack and moved, fast and silent, back toward the trailhead. I never saw him again. But I think about that opened protein bar sometimes, about the robotic wave, the hollow smile, the way he admitted he was following me, like it was nothing to fear. And I know, deep in my bones, I was disturbingly close to something horrific. Because predators don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like hikers. Sometimes they offer you food. And sometimes the only thing that saves you is that quiet voice inside that says run before your brain even understands why. Trust that voice, because in the wilderness, silence isn't always peaceful. Sometimes it's just the space between footsteps, and the next set might be coming for you.